Hello, Chris. Thank you for joining me on this podcast episode. Before we get started, do you want to introduce yourself and describe your background a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, Lee. My name's Chris White. I'm the executive director of America's Best Cleaners. And America's Best Cleaners is first and foremost a quality certification mark for the dry cleaning and couture level cleaning industry. It's now celebrating our 22nd year in existence. And we go out and seek the top garment care providers, both in North America and around the world, to allow the fashion elite and fashion houses to know where to have their garments serviced.
Wow, that sounds interesting. What led you to that role?
What led me to that role is started out in high school working with some of my buddies. Their father and older brother owned an equipment company. So to make extra cash inside, we used to go and clean machines and recycle parts and go out and fix equipment. And then I went to college and went to school for sports medicine, worked for one summer for Major League Baseball, found it interesting, realized that I didn't want to be in sports medicine anymore because I realized how valuable I liked my weekends and my nights. And so went back to college to get my degree in sports management, thinking I wanted to be a sports agent. And to keep funding my education, I would still work on the weekends doing the dry cleaning stuff. And then that led into my junior year, going out and designing and selling a lot of equipment. I paid off my student loans with my mom. I gave her a big wad of cash after one summer. She thought I was dealing drugs. I said, no, I was dealing dry cleaning machines. So it was, so that spurred into an opportunity for me to be at a trade show where I met an owner of a business in New York City that was seeking to build a new state-of-the-art production facility. And I was like, coincidentally, what do you know? That's what I do. So what led from a simple conversation at a blackjack table in Atlantic City turned into me going and bidding and designing and actually constructing the facility for this company called Madame Paulette in New York City. So that was a 2-year project. And in that 2 years, I built, designed the facility, learned a lot, left and went on to do other project work in the industry, and got a phone call from the father who owned the company saying he needed someone to come run this business. Who would I suggest? And I was like, good luck. I don't know. And he's like, what about you? And I was thinking, like, I don't know. I'm really enjoying my life right now. I threw a crazy offer out there that I thought for sure they would refuse. And without a beat, he said, when can you start? And so April of 1996, I moved from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to New York City and became the director of operations for Madame Paulette. And in that 10 years, we became the #1 dry cleaner in not only New York City, but we were the first and only dry cleaner in the world to be recognized by the Robb Report as the best in the world. So that kind of was cool. I worked with the fashion elite. I worked with all the famous people in the world, every designer you can imagine, every A-list celebrity were clients of ours. We worked with the Met Costume Institute, various different other entities to do some really unique work in the fashion restoration space. And also just doing regular wardrobe and garment apparel for the elite and the wealthy of New York. Working for a family business, you realize after a certain point, there's only so far you can go. And so I was a board member of America's Best Cleaners as an affiliate. And when I left Madame Paulette in 2005, I decided to partner up with the owner and founder at the time, Ed Delisio, and became their director of business development. And from there, we took what was just, a local kind of mastermind cost bureau group of owners around the country that kind of serves the same kind of clients as I did at Madame Paulette into being a legitimate, independent third party quality standard, so that the clients that I built in my years in New York City could know that if they found someone with this symbol on here, that they could send their Christian Lacroix or Christian Dior or Chanel, very expensive, sometimes one-of-a-kind pieces to these operations to be maintained and cleaned. And so from there, it's just been, that was in 2020 or 2000, I'm sorry, when I became part of the team, and I've been around ever since then. Took over complete ownership of the business just last year.
Wow, that sounds like a really interesting journey. It's so interesting to me how kind of like little decisions, little paths that you went down in your life led to you having the skills necessary to do what you're doing now. I commend you. That's really cool. It sounds like a great experience, working with different designers and the Met. That's really interesting. So you mentioned that kind of these dry cleaners within your what's it, like a conglomerate?
It's an affiliation.
Yeah.
Yep. They have to be annually certified every year. So every year they go through a really scrutinous process. We go in and do a physical assessment of their facility, and then they're awarded their affiliation again for another year.
Okay. So what kind of stuff do you look for when you're doing these assessments?
So originally it was just about the quality of the service and the operation. So our assessments are they're assessed throughout the year. The main one is our actual physical location assessment, where we go to the facility, we go see their businesses. How we frame it for our clients is we're coming in through the lens of your most critical customer who buys high-end fashions. And understanding that luxury market mentality, that avatar of that luxury market person, and making sure that you are providing a similar experience in the customer side that they would from a luxury retailer as their service provider. Then we go into the whole end of the operations, and we're looking at the systems, the flow, the technology they're using. Is it being used properly? Is it well maintained? Are there initiatives in place for the ergonomics, the efficacy of the employees, and are they working in good working conditions? And then outside of that annual, we actually mystery shop them randomly throughout the year so we know how they're performing. We send in test garments. We want to know what they're able to do and find. They're ranked and scored against each other. We monitor their online Google reviews, so Yelp, Google, and most of the other major rating spaces. We aggregate all that information and make sure that our affiliates, we require them to maintain a 4.7 score or higher. So that's pretty big for a service industry business like ours to do that.
Yeah.
And then we also, that's kind of like the stick and carrot mentality is, we tell them this is where you need to be certified, but we also then provide the services, the training opportunities, the materials, and the peer development programming for them to keep those standards up and exceed them. Because really our standards are really high, but we really push our affiliates to exceed them. And so in the beginning, that's really what it was. And then when we partnered with the Green Business Bureau 15 years ago, the original ownership, we said, hey, sustainability is a big part of what we're looking at of adding into our portfolio of certifications, but we're not the green people. We're not the eco-friendly people. We're the quality luxury people. But let us share with you what we know are all the sustainable initiatives that we've been putting in place, the best practices, because what we really wanted to do is set ourselves apart because, everyone thinks dry cleaners and they think toxicity and think all this stuff like that. And I remember the smell, and we're like, well, that's not what our facilities are about. Our facilities, we take clients to them, they freak out. They're immaculate. They're spotless. Some of them are white. They look like Willy Wonka's white room, because we're dealing with very, very luxe level garments and very high risky items. So these are very much studio-based type of facilities and operations. And talking to people in fashion and knowing where it is, sustainability is a big concern for people. The health aspect was more of the issue in the beginning, or the concern in the beginning, than it was the environmental. Then once we started digging into all the initiatives we're doing, we find out how much impact we could have in a positive way if we just started addressing certain actions or activities or processes that we have to lower our carbon footprint, to lower our uses of energy, or more importantly, in the beginning was the alleviation of what's perceived to be toxic chemistry.
Yeah, it sounds like you took, what is a very refined couture luxury industry and added sustainability, which I really like your approach, because sustainability is something that it does elevate a brand and it elevates a company. And it sounds like you were kind of already doing some sustainability initiatives, taking away these things that are oftentimes associated with a lack of sustainability, such as like toxic chemicals, a lot of waste. And you're turning not only something that's already a luxury industry into something that's more efficient and attractive, but also something that's more sustainable, bringing sustainability into that as an added bonus of the company and of the affiliation with your brand.
Yeah. And, interesting things take place when you start really digging into it. Like when we started developing the Green Business Bureau. So we are the agency that develops and maintains, in partnership with the Green Business Bureau, all of the initiatives for the dry cleaning space. So, and I have taken it on as my personal mission for over 2 decades now to always seek sustainable means. I mean, and to the point where, like, I literally, when I left Madame Paulette and lived in New York City for a long time, my wife and I made a conscious decision to move out of New York City, and we moved to Alaska, and we live in the space where we feel climate. And I'm a conservationist. So I'm an avid fly fisherman. I've always been an outdoorsy person, so I relate to it. And I'm always inspired by what I see around here. But what we really got into when we started digging into making these initiatives with the Green Business Bureau were what we perceived to be, or what even the market or the world perceived to be, the big environmental issue for dry cleaners, which was chemistry, right? Using PERC. PERC is this thing, because the government regulations, and then they got listed as a possible carcinogen. So that creates all these red flags. And so everyone's focus was on, using perchloroethylene. Are you using perchloroethylene? And how is that impactful? And when we started looking at it, at least with our affiliates, back then we had a lot of affiliates that were still using perchloroethylene, because most people don't realize that when PERC was introduced back in the 60s and 70s, it was considered the environmental safe solution to high flash hydrocarbons. So we went from facilities that had explosion proof rooms because we were worried about them blowing up from using these hydrocarbon solvents, now moving into using halogenated perchloroethylene. That was this environmentally and fire safe product, right? So you think about that. And then we started digging in even further. And once we started looking at the assessment, we found out that in our affiliation, because our affiliates were top line operators, they're already doing, they were handling everything properly and safely. So their exposure and risk to PERC issues was so small. And even in regular dry cleaners, it was really regularly kind of small. And when we got into it, we found out that our use of packaging and paper was a bigger issue than it was the amount of solvent or waste we were generating, the amount of water that we were using to do things, the types of energy and wastes of energy that we had weren't equal to PERC, but they were getting up there. So when you started looking at this from a very holistic frame of viewpoint, you're like, okay, well, PERC's the easy one to get rid of. And it was. We were able to get rid of PERC for most of our affiliates immediately. You know what I mean? And we're very proud of that being one of our big accomplishments, is that none of our affiliates anymore use PERC. We don't have PERC in our facility. That was, we had one legacy that just finished this last year. But for the most part, we were out of the PERC business 10 years ago. And then we partnered with all the people that were leading in the sustainability space and creating these new cleaning solutions. A company out of Germany called Kreuzler Chemical has been the leader in developing green earth or silaxane technologies that they had the original patents for. They were the ones that invented and implemented CO2 cleaning technology. And then they invented modern wet cleaning. So, and most people that look at the environmental space know of CO2 cleaning and wet cleaning because the blogosphere was blowing up at the same time and everyone was writing these articles. And then the state of California was offering grant money to people that moved away from PERC and put CO2 and wet cleaning in.
Mm.
And so we were always on the forefront of all those things, and we always had great partners. And back in 2000, I think it was 2005 or 2006, we had a sustainability fashion panel in New York City. And we had Jane Barnes, who was a fashion designer. We had a high-end retailer, Scott Mitchell, was there. We had people from Swarovski Crystals. Most people didn't realize that they're a very sustainable business, and they're big in the embellishment space. They make the buttons, so they were participating. We had a man by the name of Dr. Manfred Zeiter, who was the head chemist at Chrysler, and who created and invented all of these sustainable products that we use today. He was part of the team that made modern wet cleaning viable, and it's still running today. And one of the things that we had a couple of fashion editors and some other people in the fashion space, but the biggest quote that came out of that, or one of the biggest quotes, was from Dr. Zeiter. He said, look, the notion at the time this is early 2000s, that doing anything eco-friendly or green is expensive. It's going to be a lot. We were like, oh, we have to change all our light bulbs, and how much does that cost? And we got to change our heating, and how much does that cost? And the capital investment was huge. So that means customers they equated eco-friendly to expensive. And when you started looking at it, Dr. Zeiter said, well, that's just not true. Being sustainable is good business, because if you look at this, they are money savers. They're viable things, and they're attractants to customers and customer values that want to come to you. Are they going to be the number one decision maker now and into the future, even today's future, of why someone goes to a dry cleaner? Probably not, but they're going to be one of the main factors why they stay. Because they feel they've got to touch it, they feel it, the price wasn't out of line, and they know that what they're putting on has not had any profound negative impact on their local environment, the local workforce, or them and their personal health and safety. So that was the big thing with the GBB and partnering with them, and it's been a great partnership since then. We're proud that our affiliates take on those initiatives and use them. We already built them in on benchmarking, so adding the GBB certification was just another layer to our already profound portfolio of services and certifications. So it just organically natural good sense for us to do that, and it's been a great fit, and it's been great for our affiliates.
Yeah, that's great that you've adopted the GBB certification into your own process in that way. You're really taking advantage of what it has to offer, and this is a great case of taking what we do and turning it to something that's usable for your business and for your own process. You're really making it a core part of what you expect from your affiliates. What are some examples of some of the initiatives you've undertaken or some of the projects you've undertaken? I know you discussed using some alternative cleaners, but then, and you talked about waste being the real problem. Can you speak a little bit to maybe some big campaigns that you've undergone or some big initiatives that you've done?
So I touched on two big ones that were big catchphrases: CO2 cleaning technology and wet cleaning. And so early on, we were big adopters of CO2. Matter of fact, 90% of the CO2 cleaning machines in North America were in ABC facilities. There was a few that were not, but they were good operators. So we were on the forefront of that, and we really liked that because specifically for really exotic, expensive couture and things that have unique membranes, CO2 is a great cleaner. The issue with CO2 is the engineering and the machines are very expensive. You're dealing with high pressures. There wasn't the support service of the Allied Trades to help maintain that type of equipment. I mean, it almost looks like a rocket ship, these CO2 machines. Now, and you should know that they're still being used today. Now they're just used in central cleaning facilities. Like Patagonia owns a lot of the CO2 technology. Aline Fisher, REI, they all have their stuff sent into Denver and pre-processed. And when you go through the resale cleaning, most of that's cleaned in CO2 or it's cleaned in Chrysler's wet cleaning system. But CO2 kind of just died. It was too expensive. It just wasn't right for the retail space, but in that industrial application, it could be managed. With wet cleaning, we housed the first fashion-forward wet cleaning training seminar in California Edison. We had members from Brooks Brothers and several other major design houses come in and work with our affiliates to learn about modern wet cleaning and how to how really expensive garments, even structured jackets like this, can be cleaned. Wool, 100% wool or cashmere, can be cleaned safely in water. And when we look at that, people say, well, they aren't using a lot of water, but they don't realize that the amount of water we're using is so small compared to what you consider in laundry at home. And we're doing it in commercial machinery, with commercial technology that uses energy smart. And it's all done in cold water, so we're not using heat, so the energy footprint was small. So that was a big initiative. And then we pushed for all of our affiliates to go and put 100% wet cleaning, or put in the capability to do wet cleaning. So that's in not only our GBB certification points, but it's in our ABC affiliate. They get scored on their capabilities for doing wet cleaning and having wet cleaning done properly. But then what really turned for us is going back to that company, Chrysler Chemical, who's just been on the forefront globally in this space for all the textile cares, both in industrial and in the retail space. They brought to us an opportunity to help them develop and beta test a 100% bio-based solvent. And so we were in the first 3 of the facilities in the United States that tested it for 1 year. Were in the ABC affiliation. We cleaned over 100,000 garments in this new solvent before it went public. Then we helped support the launch of the program called System K4. So when System K4 came out, all the manufacturers, the machine manufacturers and the chemical company that designed it, they wanted to have this product in influential locations so that people could test demo, and they wanted them in places that they could bring people from the outside world. So the natural fit was for ABC affiliates to get it, because they, one, knew that they were great operators, but 2, most of the facilities were show places. You could go in and see them. They weren't your neighborhood dusty, dirty, run-down dry cleaner, with hanger boxes everywhere and broken up floor and dingy lighting. These are beautiful state-of-the-art facilities. So it's a great place to showcase, train, and demo. So the first 10 of the first 12 machines were purposely brought into the ABC affiliation around the United States to launch the program. And then that held up, we were able to put some big marketing around that with both of our brands. The GBB supported that. They gave all the System K4 operators big discounts on their certification. So that was a good thing. So anyone who bought System K4 could be certified by GBB at a discounted rate to help launch that. So that took on a lot of traction. And then when they got their USDA Bio Preferred certification, it was just one of another accomplishments of us just working through the affiliation and taking pride in that. Yes, Chrysler did all the work. We were just really great partners that could go along for the ride, and were provided the opportunity to use this technology first, to be ahead of the market, prove it out. But also the values of our owners were such that they were looking for something new like this. Because there's a lot of what we call alternative solvents that are out there now that say they're eco-friendly. Even the old hydrocarbon that I told you that was replaced by PERC, there's cleaners out there that call it organic because it's a carbon molecule, but it's truly not an organic word. They technically shouldn't be using that. So for us, looking at all these different initiatives, we had CO2 cleaning, we had wet cleaning. We continue with modern wet cleaning. We have the Green System K4 program going on with that. And when they got Bio Preferred, it's been huge. We are doing a massive amount of reduction of our single-use poly. We moved a lot of our affiliates moved to automated technology where we use cut to order single-use poly when we need it, compared to just big bulk rolls where it was just you'd have excess plastic everywhere and wasting it. Our affiliates have moved to paperless technology. I think we only have 2 left that aren't in a fully paperless scenario. And what does that mean is we no longer use paper tags, those little paper tags that be stapled to your garment when you get it back with those green numbers on it or blue numbers. Paper invoices, you know what I mean? We make the joke about the CVS invoice and how long that is, right? We got rid of invoicing, and you don't really realize how impactful that is until you start seeing your bills go down. Like, oh my God, we moved to this new digital technology. Yes, the digital technology costs for the initial investment, but the initial price of it, but the long-term cost savings is quite substantial when you're not buying paper invoices and paper tags and you see half of it getting thrown away. You're looking at stuffing tissues and things like that that people were using. And we just got smart about the various different ways. And so the GBB did a great profile on us, and it's on your website. And we listed, there must have been like 40 some initiatives that we've taken that have just big, profound impact over the last 15 years. And we're proud of that. And we're continuously looking for the next big thing, like single-use poly right now. We're working with many different people over in Europe and Asia on biodegradable or starch-based polys made from potato starches or sugar starches. So they have a life and we can use them like normal, but you go home and over a certain period of time, they will disintegrate. So the goal is to take them off, and you can actually, some of these that we're testing right now, you can put them in water and they dissolve and go away. They just turn back into sugar. So we're constantly working on that. And we know that single-use poly right now is a big, big stickler. Matter of fact, just last month, the LA County was this close to throwing an initiative of the 11th hour of banning single-use poly for dry cleaners. And didn't talk to the industry at all. And it was just by good fortune that some leadership in the California Cleaners Association, the president, Torrin Brown, who's one of our affiliates, got their team on it. They jumped on it and were able to build a dialogue with LA County to say, look, here, let's talk about the impact. Let's look at the options that we can do to do something more profound, because we realize now more than ever that sustainability is not just about throwing in a new green thing. It's like, hey, get rid of single-use poly. Okay, well, how does that affect the economics of a small business or an industry? How do we strike the balance of phasing things in and out without these very abrupt policy changes? And I think that's going to be an important step moving forward. So, I'm bullish about our future and the initiatives that we can continue to keep on finding for our affiliates to just lower their impact. And we have affiliates that have gone way above that and exceeded that. We could talk about those later on if you want.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon numerous important topics, such as something that you said about kind of putting the label of organic or the process of things being the most sustainable option or the most environmentally friendly option all along the way. You originally think that the like fluorinated gases, that those are the good thing, and then they put a hole in the ozone layer, and we are learning all as we go along. And it sounds like you've taken that process and you're really continuously trying to learn and continuously trying to find the best alternative. And that's something that not everyone's doing. So that's commendable that you guys are doing that. But along the way through your process of adopting these initiatives and kind of finding new solutions within your industry, kind of within the luxury fashion industry and dry cleaning, what sort of challenges have you had with adopting these initiatives?
Well, I think for us, it's because we're a national, international organization. I think one of the broader challenges is the diversity of the climate of the consumers in the different markets of how they choose to accept things. So it's hard for us to put a blanket initiative. I shouldn't say it's hard. It's slightly challenging, or it's just you have to put a little more effort into navigating, putting out a blanket initiative that, is all about the market in San Francisco or Seattle or Portland or even Los Angeles, and not to take it, talk about the coastal mentality of things, but a lot of these green initiatives take place there, New York City, even the city of Miami now with all their flooding and stuff, they're starting to take some initiatives. But you see what happens in the coastal cities, and everyone writes it off in a political sense, like, oh, here we go. And so, we see and we develop initiatives there. And then the challenge is trying to get those implemented in the rest of the country. Now, I say that in general, it's not a problem for our affiliates, because our affiliates are already in that mindset and they're already communicating monthly with each other. They already know where we're all at. We're all sharing these ideas. So maybe an owner who's in, Oklahoma, who is an oil-based economy state, is not so concerned about, plastic and petrochemicals isn't going to make that change because the market there is not ready for it. But when they hear the economic impact that's happening to their business bottom line, then they do the initiative no matter what. And it doesn't become they don't lead with it to their marketplace. They just do it because it's good, sound business. So I think that's one of the things that we've learned to navigate is sometimes the messaging, each of the markets a little bit different. You know what I mean? Like I live in the state of Alaska. We are a 100% oil revenue based state. And we're in a quagmire here because we're also in the climate change litmus test of the entire world. We're watching our glaciers and go away faster than ever. We're watching our salmon returns, horribly being disrupted. And at the same time, we have a political climate that wants to drill, baby, drill, and so you got to be cautious of messaging, I think, in certain areas. It doesn't mean that we still don't do the initiative. It's just about how we push it forward. So it's a timing thing, right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. The other thing I would say is that it's different governments are either hindrances to a certain degree or they're aids. Like I was involved in helping develop a really robust grant program in King County, Seattle, Greater Seattle area that rolled into the state of Washington. And it was a fund that was giving dry cleaners, they still are, up to 35 to 50. At one point it was 50,000, now it's down to $35,000 to pull a perk machine out and put in modern wet cleaning. Mm-hmm. And so there was a lot of time and initiatives to do that. Now there's a government agency that's coming in with a carrot the whole way and using the economy of a relief to make this change versus other states that come in and say, to make mandates on small businesses to their detriment. Now, whether we can talk politically, whether it's good or bad, is when it's trying to move the Titanic here. And when you're trying to move the Titanic, you can't move it 20 degrees to the left instantaneously. It takes periodic time to move these things. So I think there's opportunities where the government is like in King County in Washington, they're like, hey, let us help you meet these initiatives, right? There's others that strike a balance like California where they're like, hey, we're doing phases out and but we're going to give you some grant money. And unfortunately, the applications for the grant money were like signing a mortgage for your house, and it became really more of a hindrance. And I think King County learned from that. So they simplified it. And at the end of the day, the end result was more profound in King County because they were just much more fluid. But then there's other areas that are just come in with harsh, initiatives like you cannot do this, or the landlords have been making a lot of the initiatives changes. They just don't want the risk anymore of anything. So, new dry cleaning operations are typically not going into your better shopping plazas, or at least the operating plants. So those are the challenges that you have to be navigated day by day. But I think we're coming into Moore's Law, where everyone now sees sustainability as the way forward. We have to do it. We see what's going on in Europe, the cost of energy. We're seeing climate change in more profound ways than we ever have before. We finally have a federal government now that with the infrastructure bill now that is really making huge investments in the country, both in the infrastructure of our public ways, but also lots of money going into renewable resources and energy stuff for small businesses and homes, which I think is going to be hopefully a tidal wave of change, both in the mindset of consumers and us as consumers of energy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up the very crux of sustainability in general. Like, it's all about messaging. It's all about how you approach it. And there are certain barriers such as policy. Of course, you're going to have that no matter what. Like, for example, in Florida, the Sunshine State, the state where you could have solar energy on everything, there's certain taxes on people having solar panels on their house.
Yep.
And
it's amazing, right? And the energy authorities of Florida actively lobbied to ban solar connectivity.
Yeah, absolutely. I live there. I saw it firsthand. And I mean, I, like you, have lived and kind of traveled all over the country, and I've seen firsthand just the difference that strategic messaging makes. And that's kind of what this whole series, podcast, video
Yep.
blog is all about, is about being strategic to show that sustainability, it's not just a politicized thing, and it's not just the choice for those that want to be kind of progressive or climate forward. It's also the better choice economically and the better choice for just our livelihood in general. And if you take away kind of the politicized language and things that people don't understand that are heavily charged, and if they just look at it for the facts, they realize that it is the better choice. And it sounds like you've had a good case experience of that, where you've seen people join that's not why they join, and that's maybe not even something that they necessarily are happy about, but when they look at the numbers, they see that it actually does benefit them.
Yeah. And, here's a case in point. Like, you're talking about Florida, and we can use Alaska as the counterpoint, right? So here we are in Alaska, where the sun is just coming up right now. It's 11:41. I mean, it's up a little bit. So we're in our wintertime. My wife is the economist for the Alaska Energy Authority. Her job is to advise the governor on sustainable energy initiatives. We have some of the most profound solar panel plants going in right now in the state of Alaska, where we have darkness for half the year, and it's being funded and it's viable. And the reason why is because the challenges of this state have made technology improve. So one of the cool things is that they're putting another solar array in up just north of here of Anchorage, next to one that they put in several years ago. And the new solar array is going to be able to produce 30% more energy. And do you know the reason why this is the craziest thing in the world?
Why?
Because
the sun's
Go ahead. What was it?
Is it because the sun's more intense when it does shine?
No, because a very good thought, though, is they realize that we have snow on the ground for 4 to 5 months of the year, right? And snow is white and it reflects light. So the solar panels are on both sides of our solar panels up here. So when the sun is shining right now in January with snow on the ground, the reflection of the snow off the snow is powering the backside of the solar panels. So they estimate that it will bring in an additional 30% of energy. So imagine now they're talking about in other climates, like you look at the solar arrays in Las Vegas now, if they were just to put white mats down underneath all that and added more solar, they could increase the productivity almost 30%. So with these challenges becomes initiative. But then you look at Florida, where it's so easy, like, oh my God, why don't we just put solar panels and why don't we fund it and let everyone connect? And there's sun 80% of the year. We could be self-sustainable as a state in Florida. We're trying to do it here in Alaska because we may be oil resource rich, natural gas resource rich, but we have to ship our oil all the way down to San Diego, get refined, and then tankered back up so we can put in our gas tanks. So, and we power our electricity through natural gas and coal and hydro up here. And so looking at the initiatives of now solar and tidal are big. So we're talking big scale, but we're talking in the contents of dealing with policy initiatives around and who's the pros and who's the cons. And the old guard of old money and infrastructure in this country is more profound in its impact on not making change in Florida than it is anywhere else, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And still along that kind of big picture idea, what is your vision for America's Best Cleaners for the future? If you could envision it being as successful and optimal and sustainable as it could be, what's your goal and what's your kind of vision for what that would be?
So in the sustainability space, my vision would be, and if I were to say, let's make an avatar, right? And so, I have a couple of affiliates that almost are this avatar now. So I have an affiliate in Livermore, California, Country Club Cleaners. Country Club Cleaners won a global award several years ago by an organization called CNET, which is our national organization for textile care providers, on sustainability. And it was profound because he went to 100% solar panel on his plants. He moved all his company vehicles for his top leaders and himself to electric hybrid. And he's now investing in electric hybrid delivery vans for that because they can plug everything in and right off their solar panels. He changed to all these great new cleaning technologies. He does mostly 100% wet cleaning with some eco-friendly solvent cleaning on the side, small percentage, less than 20%. Very minimal plastic use, doesn't use paper, but still delivers a very high-end customer-centric service offering to them as a paperless system, uses technology. And Bob, the owner, is, I wouldn't call him a greenie, but he's just like, look, it goes back to this thing. It's like, it makes sense. I got tax rebates on all this initiatives. It lowered my tax burden. My managers love the fact that they're driving a new hybrid company vehicle, and if it resonates with their values. It doesn't cost me anything. Plus, California traffic, they get the hybrid sticker. They can drive in the HOV lane, so it's more efficient for his business, and that's why he's moving his delivery fleet to it. So my avatar for my affiliates is to try to be, and we had a meeting on it last year, how to make yourself the most self-sustainable business in that you can be energy independent as much as possible. Mm-hmm. You can reduce your reliability on goods and services that have to be trucked from all over the world. Yeah. So looking at local resourcing whenever possible, using chemistry, because we do use a lot of chemistry that is sustainable, biodegradable, and has a very good environmental efficacy, which we've all very much accomplished for the most part, but we're continuously getting better at. Reduction of your energy costs. So all of our new design facilities that we're designing are putting in very high efficiency steam boilers. So people need to remember that we have to create steam, and it takes a lot of energy to take cold water and make it into steam. So how do we do that? Putting water recirculating systems in our facilities. So we're starting to see a lot of that. So the avatar is fully sustainable with solar power, possibly wind as a backup. You're minimizing your use of packaged goods and packaging so that you can deliver the product. You are using energy efficient vehicles because convenience is a key moving forward. Everyone wants things delivered now and at their home. So looking at that, do I need to have a larger footprint of retail space that I have to heat and staff and air condition when it's more efficient and more effective to deliver right to the customer's home through their fleet of vehicles? Reducing all of that potential traffic of customers having to drive to our locations. We just do with them. Looking at internally the facility, can they meet LEED standards when they're building them? Are we using LED lighting? Are we looking at new technologies like power over Ethernet now? And that's a new thing coming on where we can do a lot of our lighting and heating controls now with 24-volt cat cables and not have to run big, large copper wiring and aluminum hard wiring. Look at all the materials that go into that. So the avatar is a LEED standard building with all the sustainability initiatives that we have. A happy workforce that's really built around pleasing a values-based goal that the company sets as part of their mission that they resonate with. Their caring culture that has sustainability as part of what's in that culture. The quality aspect is one, but the maintaining of and not wasting goods and services or utilities is important. So, those are grand goals, but that's what grand goals are supposed to be. And these are all laid out in our GBB certification. These initiatives are there already. It's just the appetite for, or the climate for the affiliate where they are to be able to get to that point. And some of these things, the economics of scale or the economics of it are just not quite there yet, right? Technologies haven't just broke that right barrier.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
And that at the end of the day, that makes every dollar our clients spend, not only do they get a great service, but they feel good about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like, I know that I'm spending money here, and not only is it sustainable, but we're pushing hard now into our social responsibility space too, right? Where the sustainability aspect is not just about my business, but it's my local community. Like, how do I help maintain a standard of living with my employees and the goodwill that my small business could do locally, and getting into, whatever that may be, whatever the values of the owners or the team, the leadership team is, making profound impact beyond just the transaction of cleaning your clothes.
Yeah. And that's how all businesses should operate. I mean, I was the one that just wrote the 40 plus social responsibility initiatives we added to our platform. And that's because it's something I'm really passionate about. And businesses need to go back to being one with the community and contributing to the community, not just taking away from it as we've been operating for quite some time. And with all that you've done, it seems like you're really undertaking a lot. And I know that it's hard, especially for me, even to kind of feel like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So, why do you think that sustainability is approachable and doable?
I just think the technology curve now, and with everything that's taking place that we came through out of COVID, right? Big shifts in people's mentality about
Mm-hmm.
what is important, I think was the
Mm-hmm.
first thing, right? We had a big value shift in regards to relationships to humans and how
Yeah.
human contact and that comes away. But then also you start to see the impact. Like when COVID happened, I mean, this is what like I tell my clients, never in your entire life would you ever imagine you've wished that you could hit control of the lead on your business, right? And
Mm-hmm.
start anew, but you could never afford to do it because you're running a business, right? And
Yeah.
I think COVID did that for us both in the business sense, but also in our personal sense, right? It's like, wait a minute, when people weren't consuming as much as they were, look at how less energy we use. Look at how,
Yeah.
we bought local food because the shelves, we couldn't truck it, you know what I mean? And we supported local economies. And, I'm 52, going on 52 years old. So I'm a Gen Xer. I went through this technology boom. I
Mm-hmm.
remember how important the local market was before everything started getting trucked in. And I think COVID helped us all frame that mentality. Like, why am I spending, all this money for some place to send me something from somewhere else when I could be spending it here? And does it really cost me that much more? So I think that I'm hopeful that people are realizing that buying and spending local is important. I'm a huge proponent of independent small businesses and the impact that they have on our business, on our communities, and our lifestyle, and just our nation as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there has been a massive resurgence of that, whether it's people going into the gig world and becoming freelancers and all this other stuff. And people's like, where are all these workers at? Well, they're not working in conventional jobs anymore. They're working freelancers, Upwork, and Fiverr, or whether it's Ubering or whatnot. These are independent work, small independent businesses, and I think people have a new mentality of getting back to that. I think, and I hope that consumerism is not a bad word, but is becoming something where people just don't need as much stuff, right?
Yeah.
So I just read a great book called Stuffification. And so it was a very super fun, light read about, getting away from stuff. What does stuff do for you versus
Uh-huh.
experiences, and
Yeah.
spending your money on experiential relationships? And what does that mean profoundly to you as a human? Because stuff's easy, but having experiences and being involved is a harder challenge. And I think more people are up to it. I know as business owners, my business owners right now, they're very optimistic about the future. They've been through a hard challenge, but like I said earlier, no one ever would have said, hey, let's just strip your business down 80%. Let's lose 80% of your business and rebuild it from the ground up. And
Mm-hmm.
so we framed that for our affiliates as saying, look, we can sit here and dwell on losing 80% of business, or we can see this as a profound opportunity to have a once in a lifetime space to rebuild the business exactly the way we want it to be, with intention. And
Yeah.
so we are coming out of that 2 years of that framework and building, and the energy and momentum that I see our affiliates have as independent small businesses and the people that work for them empowers me, energizes me. They're excited. Like I said, we just had our affiliate first call for 2023, and everyone is energized and bullish. They're ready to go attack things, and they're being very intentional about what they're doing. And I think that's great, because I think before we just did things because we did things. We
Yeah.
bought stuff because we liked stuff, and we reacted to things because we had no reason to be intentional. And I think now people are more present. I think they're
Mm-hmm.
more intentional about what they want. I think those that choose to be engaging are being more engaging.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very, very optimistic about that. And I'm very optimistic about how people now see the world in regards to their everyday transactions, right?
Yeah.
Like, do I really need to put that leftover food in a Ziploc bag, or can I put it in a reusable container?
Mm-hmm.
I gave all my affiliates this year an Earth Hero gift that was all sustainable. So clean canteen water bottles, earth friendly bug dope, and sunscreen. And
Oh,
my gift to them was to go take an awe walk. And I sent them an article from Psychology Today about the importance of an awe walk and how it is just to take 10, 15 minutes of your day, take the tools that I just gave you, go for a walk. They also had a link to the AllTrails app. Find a trail by you. Go
yeah.
engage with nature for 15 minutes. Just go look for that butterfly, or it's wintertime here. Go find the trails of the animals in the snow. Think about that for 10 or 15 minutes. And wow, what does it do for your mind when you go back into the office? And be intentional about it. And I think a lot of people are embracing that now more than ever. And you can call it whatever you want, woke or awareness or progress, but I think it's just human nature for us to go back and be empathetic people, aware, and being really, really conscientious of how we impact everything around us, and that being the environment and people.
Thank you so much, Chris. That brought tears to my eyes. I can relate to that so much. And I think it's just so important that we look at this collective kind of period of trauma that we all went through as a global society for the past
Yep.
2-3 years. And you hit the nail on the head. We turned it into something that's an opportunity for growth, an opportunity kind of to look at the way we were going in the world and living disconnected and living attached to so much stuff and just kind of being mindless. And we take it as an opportunity to be intentional and think about our impacts on the world and how we can continue to improve and make the world a better place.
Well, Lee, you and your generation are the inspiration for all of us in your new approach to look at it. And next month, our affiliate meeting is trying to figure out what is in your generation's head so that we can help support your initiatives, both from a perspective of sales and marketing, but also understanding that you are our future, and your mindset regards to its relationship to all humans, whatever pronoun they choose to use, all places of the world, whether it's the Arctic, the oceans, the Caribbean, the deserts of the world, and what kind of impact we have on that is going to be important for all of us to start to understand and relate and follow your lead.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Chris. It's been so great talking to you, and keep doing the good work. It sounds like you have a lot of ambitions and a lot ahead of you, and I'm proud that you are a GBB member.
Thank you, Lee. It's my pleasure and appreciate it.
Yeah.